On today's podcast, with the recent launch of my new book, Breathing Oxygen, How Positive Leadership Gives Life to Winning Cultures, which thanks to all of you out there in the world that are helping with this launch and helping share it with other people, is trending still as the #1 Amazon new release in business, organizational learning, and workplace culture. A huge thank you to everybody out there who is helping to spread the word. I'm excited to begin the introspective journey with all of you into what is the air we need to be breathing right now for all of us in our own lives and in our teams and organizations, our personal lives. What is the air we need to be breathing? As leaders, humans, spouses, department heads, parents, and friends, how are we going to be the contributors to the world and have the energy and breathe in the oxygen that helps bring out the best in us and also the best in others? What is the air that we need to breathe?
Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world.
Stay tuned at the end of the episode to hear from Jason about his new book, Breathing Oxygen, and a special request he has for his listeners.
Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. Season 6 is still moving rapidly along. We are well over 130 episodes, and so excited about the energy, the growth, the excitement that continues to grow with this podcast. So excited, everybody that I hear from, that this is adding value and contributing to your life, your career, your team, just helping with conversations that might need to be happening throughout your teams, throughout your organization. So, as always, my hope with this podcast is this is a place for you to step back, for you to think, for you to be filled with some positive thoughts and also some things that trigger your mind and your heart to compel you to the next action or whatever you may be thinking about, and give you some support and some positive mojo for whatever lies ahead in your life and your career. I am more convinced of this than ever, as you know. That authentic leadership is needed. We need authentic leaders. We need positive leaders, which doesn't mean that we're just Pollyannic and, just everything ought to stay positive. I don't mean that by the term positive. I mean, we are able in the midst of challenges and uncertainty and obstacles we might be facing to name them, to acknowledge them, to be real about the things we might be facing, and yet still choose to have a positive response and be optimistic about the future that we can create, the solutions we can find. That's the kind of leadership that we need right now in the world. And also, I know that we need compelling cultures, groups of people that are bringing out the best in each other and are aligned to accomplish a mission greater than themselves. That's just an ethic of what the best teams are, so I'm glad that you are here and listening today. If you will do me a quick favor, of course, before we dive into today, if you will do me just take 1 minute to rate this podcast 5 stars, of course, on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. If you will leave a nice review, those are the very simple ways that this podcast becomes more accessible to other people so they can find it and these messages can reach further. So if you would please do me that favor, that would be really, really great. And then also if these messages resonate with you, just like anything in the world, share it with your people, with your network, with the people around you. Share episodes that you think, hey, we ought to be talking about this within our team or organization. That's the way that this stuff spreads. And the point, obviously, is this for the to have impact and to benefit people. So thanks to everybody that rates, reviews, and shares this podcast. So on today's podcast, with the recent launch of my new book, Breathing Oxygen, How Positive Leadership Gives Life to Winning Cultures, which thanks to all of you out there in the world that are helping with this launch and helping share it with other people, is trending still as the #1 Amazon new release in business, organizational learning, and workplace culture. A huge thank you to everybody out there who is helping to spread the word. I'm excited to begin the introspective journey with all of you into what is the air we need to be breathing right now for all of us in our own lives and in our teams and organizations, our personal lives. What is the air we need to be breathing? As leaders, humans, spouses, department heads, parents, and friends, how are we going to be the contributors to the world and have the energy and breathe in the oxygen that helps bring out the best in us and also the best in others? What is the air that we need to breathe? But before we dive into that, let's take a quick break. Let's pause for a second, and we'll be right back.
If you haven't done so already, we hope you'll visit Amazon or Amplify or jasonvbarger.com to check out Breathing Oxygen, my new book that is all about breathing good oxygen into ourselves and mindsets that fuel ourselves and the teams and the organizations around us. Positive, healthy thinking is as essential to great leadership and building a winning culture as the air we breathe. Leading yourself and a team of people has never been more complicated than it is today. As a leader, every move you make is either breathing life into your organization or slowly killing it. The atmosphere can easily turn toxic with negativity, blame, and doubt poisoning the culture. Just like every being on the planet needs good air to breathe, every organization needs leadership that breathes life into its people to sustain the energy required to complete its mission. Breathing Oxygen focuses on 6 key leadership mindsets that breathe life into any team: clarity, inclusivity, mental agility, grit, rest, and ownership. Join us, read, and share Breathing Oxygen.
Available now from Amplify Books on Amazon and jasonvbarger.com.
First off, before we dive into today, I just want to again just say thank you to everybody out there. Sincerely, just thank you to everybody who's helping to spread the word. I'm so affirmed and just so humbled and excited about the response that Breathing Oxygen is receiving from so many people. Not only that the idea itself is resonating and people are wanting to dive in and it seems to be something that seems so relevant to people for their own personal lives, but also for their teams and organizations. But also the people that have already read it and the reviews that are coming in and the response that it's getting from people that are truly sharing genuine and authentic love for the book and desire to share it with other people. So thank you to all who are sharing with others and kind of breathing good oxygen into other people. So today, we're going to talk about what is the air that we're choosing to breathe, and going to begin this kind of journey that we'll do, over the next year or so, breaking apart some of the elements of this book. Obviously, this is a podcast, so diving deeper and getting the book and diving into the book is going to be your best spot to do that for the deep dive. But we are going to pick out pieces of the book throughout the next year and just try to expand on them a little bit and break them down into some podcast episodes to share them in some digestible content. And so, the general theme of Breathing Oxygen, as you know, that right now, breathing is such an essential part of us as humans, obviously. It helps with all of our functions. And it helps us kind of navigate our way through life and through the world. And yet we also know there's been so much swirling and so much uncertainty and so much kind of toxic air in the recent past that thinking about what is the air that we need to breathe is so important to us. We know that there are oxygen givers. If you can imagine, there are people in the world. If you've ever been a part of a meeting where somebody walks into the room and they just kind of bring better oxygen to everybody. They kind of breathe life into everybody. If you've ever had a friend that's done that just kind of breathes oxygen into everybody around them and helps kind of bring out the best in people. We know that there are teams, there are departments, there are leaders that kind of breathe that oxygen and just help kind of raise the standards and bring out the best in everybody. And then we also know that there are oxygen takers. And there are people in our lives that just, the Debbie Downers or the people that just kind of always see the negative side of things. They come into any situation. If you've ever been in a meeting where somebody just kind of stops the creative momentum of in the room and just kind of hijacks it with a cloud of negativity or blame or gossip or something like that just kind of takes the oxygen in the room. And I don't think people, I hope you hear me clearly when I'm saying this, is I don't believe that these people, and all of us are human, we all fall into being oxygen givers and takers in different moments in our lives, but people that are habitually kind of oxygen takers, I don't believe that it's because they're a bad person or that they don't want to do better, or in many cases they don't even recognize they're doing it, but they've formed a habit of moving throughout the world and kind of breathing in. That's the air that they breathe. And so what is the air that we want to breathe? What is the air that you want to breathe? What's fueling you, and what maybe is not bringing out the best in you? Our brains use about 25% of the oxygen we take in to fuel our organs and really our basic functions as humans. About 25% of the oxygen we take in that's what kind of fuels us and helps us be healthy. And when we start to have a lack of oxygen, it stunts our ability to do everything. It stunts our ability to think. It stunts our ability to even move, and certainly stunts and clouds our decision making. And so the oxygen we breathe is so important to our daily function and navigating our way through not only the good times, but the challenges we might be facing. The National Science Foundation, they did a study, and it says that humans have anywhere between 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts in an average day. So I'll let you decide whether or not you think you're on the 12,000 side of that, of maybe you're a slower, more deliberate kind of thinker, and maybe you're in that 12,000 thoughts a day range, or if you're on the high end, a rapid thinker that is kind of, has thoughts coming at them all day long, and that kind of 60,000 thoughts in an average day. Wherever you fall in that spectrum, everybody's, it's all good. But they also say that in these studies, about 80% of the thoughts that we have, again, whether you're in that 12,000 range or anywhere up to 60,000 thoughts you have in an average day, this study revealed that about 80% of those thoughts, wherever you fall in that range, 80% are identified as negative thoughts. About 80% of them. Things about what we might not be capable of, worry, anxiety, oh, shoot, this won't work. Kind of, unfortunately, a lot of our external conditions and our habits that we formed is that they found that about 80% of those thoughts can be negative. And they also found that 95% of the thoughts are repetitive. So if 80% of the thoughts are negative and 95% of the thoughts are repetitive, the stories that we're telling ourselves in our own heads, the mindset that we're bringing to our lives, let alone the work or whatever we're trying to accomplish in front of us, we are in an uphill battle to make sure that we are ridding ourselves of those negative thoughts, clearing up space to make sure that we're giving our attention and our focus to thoughts that actually fuel us, that bring out the best in us, that maybe breathe a little life into us rather than breathe anxiety or worry or blame or gossip or any of that kind of stuff. So, if this is the case, then what do we think our thoughts do in order to shape our perspectives on our life and what we're trying to do each day and on our worldview? How do our thoughts and our mindset then impact our perspectives, our worldview, our mood, our functions? And when our minds are cluttered with negative and gossip and blame and toxic air, then how do we think that impacts our performance? So add all of that to the realities that so many people have been facing over the last 2 years: economic and political uncertainty, a global pandemic, the war in Ukraine, or any war around the world that is scary and troublesome to all of us, issues of social justice, the challenges that have come with remote work or hybrid work, or then just the stress of coming back into the office. Mental health issues are up on the rise. Divorces have been up. Substance abuse has been up, and over again. And again, I'm naming these things not to just make us, feel bad, but to just acknowledge the realities that we've been facing. by so many different statistics, we have been dealing with some foggy and toxic and in times that have made it a little bit harder for people to breathe. And so we need good air to breathe. We need better air to breathe so that we can navigate our way through this fog. Some people, some teams get pulled into that breathing of toxic air. Again, that becomes the culture that the habits they form of kind of negativity, and that will never work kind of thinking, gossiping about people around us when we don't really even know the full narrative or somebody's not in the room, and so we take that opportunity to talk poorly about them, blaming other people when something doesn't go the way we wanted, or a project we might be involved with, the pointing the fingers of why it didn't go the way that we wanted. There's some people, individual leaders and teams and organizations, that this is just the culture that they have allowed to linger. And yet others, we know, not only from watching it, from observing it, from witnessing it, certainly from studying it. I've experienced it within many of the teams and organizations I'm lucky to support and serve. But others choose to breathe in a different spirit and different mindsets daily. And the point I'm going to make with all of this is that it's a practice. And the more we practice it, like anything, again, if we get pulled into that toxic air and the more we breathe, the image I have is somebody that kind of each day voluntarily walks over and chooses to be breathing in the air of an exhaust coming out of a car. And if day after day we walk over and that's where we choose to stand and that's where we choose to breathe, then that impacts our health, and that just impacts the habit that we form to do that. And so obviously what we're talking about is changing that habit and a practice of choosing to say, what is the different air that I want to breathe? And so we know that others, leaders, teams, entire organizations, choose to breathe different air. They recognize the challenges that we all face in the world, but they choose to breathe good oxygen, to go instead of over to the exhaust coming out of the car, they find good oxygen tanks. And they take time and they practice breathing in gratitude. They practice breathing in positive affirmations to themselves, remembering what the mission is, why they're doing what they're doing. They breathe in to remind themselves that their mindset is for looking for solutions, to be solutions-focused rather than just pointing out problems or being a critic. They breathe in positivity. Again, not blindly like, oh, well, everything will just be better, just think positively. No, they breathe in acknowledging the challenges and obstacles they might be facing, but yet still in that moment choosing optimism, choosing positivity to say, I am optimistic about the future we can create, even in the midst of challenging situations, whether that's for you as an individual, whether that's a relationship that's being challenged right now, whether that's a team or an organization that has challenges they're facing. We choose together that we are going to be optimistic and positive, that we can find solutions and stimulate progress forward to create a future that we want to be a part of, and that we are a part of that process. So stop for a second as you're listening to this and just take a step back to breathe, to take a deep breath. Sometimes we're moving so quickly, and again, we're anxious about whatever's going to happen next, and we get into the routines and habits that we all form each day. To stop and to step back and to just take a deep breath. And then begin to allow yourself, are you even aware of the things in your life, the factors, the conditions, the people, the situations, the activities? Are you even aware of those things that breathe kind of good oxygen into you? What are those things? Again, those factors, those conditions, people, situations, activities that you love that kind of give you energy. What are those things for you? One of our first things we need as leaders and as just humans is to be aware of what are those things that seem to give us oxygen, and to just be aware of those things and name those things. And we've also got to be aware of which are those things, again, those factors, those conditions, those people, the situations or activities that seem to steal our oxygen and drain us. So what are those things for you? What are those things, if you're aware of them, what are those things that bring out the best in you and kind of breathe oxygen into you? And what are the things each day that maybe steal your oxygen or make it a little harder to breathe? We've been talking about on this podcast, and you can listen back. There are many episodes I've done about about emotional intelligence. Again, you read any article in the world today, they talk about how important culture is and how the link to emotional intelligence. We need leaders and peoples and teams that are more emotionally intelligent. Well, part of the first step of emotional intelligence and us practicing this is awareness of our own self, to be able, to understand what is it that breathes oxygen into us, and then what is it that kind of steals our oxygen. We have to have emotional intelligence to have that awareness. And then the other part of emotional intelligence is using that, not just recognizing and being aware of those things, but using that recognition and that awareness to then help create habits and a behavioral response, an action that comes from that awareness that helps us calibrate our own thermostat, if you will, and then helps us kind of breathe life into ourselves each day. In practice, breathing in, the stuff that brings out the best of us, that helps us set the temperature for the type of person or leader or team that we want to be, so that we can breathe the way that we want to breathe. And so that awareness in ourselves, and then beginning to be aware of that in each other so that we can bring out the best in each other, we start to be more aware of what is the air that we currently are breathing or we need to be breathing. And let's make sure that we practice breathing in the stuff that brings out the best of us and being intentional about that, and getting away from the stuff, walking away from that car exhaust that we might have found ourselves getting into from time to time. So for this week, I have some teaser questions for you to ponder, of course, some things to think about related to this. What habit, activity, or practice would help breathe good oxygen into you to fuel you this week? What is that? What is the air that you need to breathe? What's a habit? What's an activity, a practice that would help kind of breathe oxygen into you this week? And then being aware of what is the toxic or unhealthy situations, gossip, negativity, things that you need to avoid, and maybe just walking away from that car exhaust. What are those things for you?
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.
Many people have asked recently about the book, and again, how wonderful the launch is going. And what I'll just say is the launch is still happening. Again, you launch a book, and it launched early this August. But it doesn't mean the launch is over. It still is launching, and many people have continued to still ask, how can they help with sharing these messages? And quickly, I'll just share these are a couple of ways. That one is, if you haven't ordered the book yet, is to go out and get it, whether that's at Amazon, whether that's at Amplify, Barnes & Noble, wherever it is you get books. Walk in and go get it, or order it online. Whatever that is for you, is to go get it and then to read it. Obviously, it's wonderful that it's receiving such great reviews, and that it has become a number one new release on Amazon, and that it's trending in all these great ways. That's so awesome. But more awesome than that, and more important to me, is that it's impacting people and that it's resonating with people. So not only get the book, but read it.
And then I'd love to hear what's resonating with you and how it's impacting you. So order it and read it. The other way you can help with the launch is to share it. If and only if it authentically resonates with you, then to give copies to the people in your life and your work and the people around you or colleagues across the country, around the world that this will resonate with. Help share it. If you're on social media or you have an email network or whatever is authentic for you, if there's things that have resonated with you, share it with other people. Tell them about it and be somebody that helps kind of breathe oxygen into this so that it can share in the world. And then the third thing that I would just ask of you, and this is just so important for the whole launch, is reviews. Whether I like it or not, Amazon reviews and reviews on whatever, wherever you buy the book are so important. So wherever you get it, if you would also take the time to rate the book, hopefully 5 stars, but leave a really positive review about it, that helps the algorithm so other people can find the book. If you have other ideas or other needs for your team and organization, obviously track us down at info@jasonvbarger.com, and we'll try to help in any way to help amplify these messages so that they can reach more and more people and have, breathe good oxygen into others. We all need to breathe in appreciation and gratitude for all that is within our control. Now is a chance for us to positively impact those around us, within our teams, our families, our communities, whoever it is that's around you on your journey. That gives energy to everybody. And calibrating our own personal thermostat for the life and the work that we want to do in the world is all about that personal awareness, and then calibrating that thermostat based on the awareness to develop the relationships around us and to take a step forward to bring it to action and to life. We are the thermostats. And once we're clear on the temperature we want to set, in order to keep that temperature where we want it and making progress, we're going to continue to need to breathe oxygen into ourselves and also into the people around us. So I hope you'll keep tuning in. We've got so many great episodes that are still coming up in the future. The next episode is a conversation that I have, a chat that I had actually on the Experience by Design podcast. I'm going to share this great chat that I had with Gary David and Adam Gamwell. They are professors and business design anthropologists that we're talking about culture and their study and research, and were gracious enough and asked me to be a guest on their podcast, so I want to share that with you all. Remember, the best leaders, teams, and cultures on the planet stimulate progress by recalibrating their thermostat and then breathing good oxygen into themselves and others. Breathe good oxygen. I wrote Breathing Oxygen because I needed to breathe in good oxygen in my own life, and what I'm finding is that other people needed it too. There continues to be high levels of uncertainty and change and division and angst and so much that seems out of our control. It's challenging for individuals and teams and organizations to navigate their way forward. And it's easy to get sucked into negative and toxic mindsets and actions. We all know there are oxygen givers and oxygen takers in every room and in every organization on the planet. And so leaders and teams need to be deliberate about what is the air that they breathe and the mindsets that they feed. When we breathe in good, healthy mindsets, our performance expands. And when we breathe in toxic and negative mindsets of gossip and blame, our performance deflates. Breathing Oxygen focuses on 6 key mindsets. Mindsets of clarity, of inclusivity, mental agility, grit, rest, and ownership and positive accountability. Positive leadership is about being honest and transparent about the challenges we're facing and still choosing to be optimistic and believing that we can create a better future. Winning cultures doesn't just mean winning the contest or becoming best in class or the best at whatever it is that you do, although I hope and we aim for that too. A winning culture is one that is authentic, where people are aligned around creating a compelling culture together that also produces results. Research and data continues to tell us that people want to be a part of a more meaningful culture, that they want to be a part of something greater than self, that they want to contribute, they want to develop, and they want to share in the creation of a compelling culture. But as I talk about in my book, Thermostat Cultures, it won't just happen magically on its own. We have to lead the change that we want and intentionally set the temperature at all levels of the company, and then breathe oxygen into it to keep it going. We all know that culture shaping never stops. We just have to continuously breathe good oxygen.